average is more expensive than excellence. At first glance, this statement might sound strange because most people think average is the safe option. They believe staying in the middle means less risk, less effort, and less sacrifice. But the truth is, average silently robs people of their potential, steals their dreams, and charges the highest price of all: regret. The cost of excellence is effort, discipline, and persistence. The cost of average is your future. And when you weigh those two, the price of average is far more expensive than anything excellence will ever demand. Think for a moment about the people who settle for average in their health. They eat what everyone else eats. They skip exercise because it's easier to rest, and they convince themselves that tomorrow will be a better day to start. For years it seems fine, because average doesn't collapse overnight, but one day they wake up with health problems, energy gone, and dreams fading because the body can no longer keep up. Average in health always ends up costing more in pain, medicine, and lost opportunities than the discipline of maintaining wellness. The same is true in finances. Average spending habits might feel comfortable today, buying unnecessary things, living paycheck to paycheck, and never setting money aside feels easy in the moment. Excellence in finances requires sacrifice. It means saying no to instant pleasures and yes to long-term vision. But what does average cost? It costs years of debt, stress over bills, and a life controlled by circumstances instead of choices. Excellence might require budgeting, patience, and work ethic, but average demands your freedom. In relationships, average is equally dangerous. Being an average friend, partner, or parent means giving just enough attention to get by. It means listening halfway, showing up sometimes, and assuming people will always be there. Excellence requires effort, intentional listening, and putting others first. But what does average cost in relationships? Broken trust, distance, loneliness, and regret. Excellence builds connection. Average breaks it, and the repair cost is always greater than the cost of building strong bonds in the first place. Why is average so expensive? Because it creates the illusion of safety. People think average keeps them secure, but really it places them on a slow, moving path toward failure. Excellence looks expensive because it asks for effort today, but average hides its bill until the end when it is too late to change. Excellence charges you discipline in the moment. Average charges you regret for a lifetime. Look at the marketplace. Nobody pays premium value for average. Nobody hires the average worker at the highest wage. Nobody lines up to buy the average product. Nobody remembers the average leader. The rewards of life don't go to those who blend in. They go to those who stand out. Excellence attracts recognition, opportunity, and respect. Average fades into the background, and the cost of being unseen is losing the chance to create lasting impact. Excellence doesn't mean perfection, but it does mean giving your best. It means choosing to grow instead of settling. It means deciding that every day matters and every choice compounds. Small acts of excellence, reading instead of scrolling, exercising instead of sleeping in, saving instead of wasting, build momentum. Small acts of average, procrastinating, neglecting, compromising, slowly dismantle your future. Excellence pays you interest. Average charges you debt. Some people say discipline is too hard, but the truth is, regret is harder. Regret is looking back and knowing you could have done more, you could have become more, but you chose the easy path. The weight of discipline lasts minutes or hours, but the weight of regret lasts a lifetime. Which price would you rather pay? The price of getting up early, staying focused, working harder, and making sacrifices, or the price of living with unfulfilled potential? Average is expensive because it cost you the life you could have lived. It costs you the energy you could have had, the wealth you could have built, the relationships you could have cherished, the impact you could have made. Excellence is not free, but it is an investment that multiplies. Average is not free either, but it is an expense that compounds into loss. If you want to live a life of meaning, you must recognize that average is not a bargain. It is the most overpriced path you can choose. Excellence might stretch you, challenge you, and test you, but it will also reward you, honor you, and set you free. The question is not whether life will demand a price from you, but which price you are willing to pay. Pay for discipline today or pay for regret tomorrow. Excellence is always cheaper than average in the end. Most people fail not from lack of talent, but from tolerating mediocrity. Talent is common. Every human being is born with the seeds of greatness, with ideas, skills, and untapped potential waiting to be cultivated. But talent alone has never guaranteed success. The real difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck is how much they demand from themselves. The danger isn't that people have too little talent, but that they allow average to become acceptable, that they settle for good enough instead of striving for their best. Mediocrity is seductive. It promises comfort. It tells you that you don't need to work late, you don't need to study one more hour, you don't need to take the harder road. It whispers, relax, you're doing fine. But what mediocrity doesn't tell you is the cost you will eventually pay, the cost of a wasted dream, the cost of missed opportunities, the cost of living a life that never reflected your true potential. Mediocrity is expensive, but it charges you slowly so you don't notice until it's too late. Think about the student with incredible intelligence who never learns to apply himself. He passes his classes but never stands out. He has the ability, but not the discipline. Later in life, he wonders why doors didn't open for him. The answer is simple. He tolerated mediocrity. Or consider the athlete with natural ability who never practices harder than the average player. He shines in the beginning, but the discipline, less talented players eventually surpass him. It was never about talent. It was about the willingness to rise above average. The truth is, mediocrity is a habit, not an event. It shows up in small daily choices, hitting the snooze button instead of rising early, skipping the book you intended to read, neglecting to make the call that could have changed your business. Each choice alone feels harmless, but over time they accumulate into a life that falls short of what it could have been. Success is built the same way, through habits. Small disciplines repeated daily build momentum, character, and results that compound over time. Most people don't make it because they underestimate the danger of just enough. Doing just enough to keep a job, just enough to get by, just enough to stay afloat. These choices keep you in the middle. And the middle is crowded, it's competitive, and it's forgettable. The marketplace does not reward average. Employers do not promote average. History does not remember average. Only those who demand excellence from themselves are elevated, respected, and remembered. Here is the paradox: people think discipline is costly. They think pushing harder, studying more, sacrificing today is too heavy a burden. But the real burden is regret. Regret weighs more than discipline ever could. Regret says, I could have done more. I should have tried harder. I had the chance, but I let it slip. Discipline asks for sweat today, but regret demands your peace of mind for the rest of your life. That is why mediocrity is such a thief. It robs you silently until all that's left is the haunting echo of what might have been. If you want to rise above mediocrity, you must raise your standards. You must refuse to be comfortable with good enough. You must ask more of yourself than anyone else ever will. You don't need more talent. You need more commitment. You don't need more opportunities. You need to do more with the opportunities you already have. Life rewards those who take what they've been given and multiply it. The world belongs to those who make themselves too strong, too skilled, and too consistent to be ignored. At the end of your life, the measure will not be how much talent you had, but how much of it you used. It won't be whether you had potential, but whether you turned that potential into results. Most people fail not because they were born without the tools, but because they never sharpened the tools they had. Don't let mediocrity become your prison. Don't pay the price of average when excellence is available to anyone willing to reach for it. Success is not about what you're given, it's about what you're willing to demand of yourself. Talent is the starting line, not the finish line. The finish line belongs to those who refuse to tolerate mediocrity, who choose to pay the price of discipline instead of the price of regret. Excellence is not reserved for the few. It is achieved by the few who are unwilling to settle for less. The world doesn't reward average. It never has, and it never will. If you look back through history, you'll notice something striking nobody remembers: the ones who lived in the middle. Statues aren't built for the mediocre. Books aren't written about the person who simply blended in. The world pays attention to the exceptional, to the men and women who dared to demand more of themselves when everyone else was content to coast. Yet here's the truth most people don't want to face. Average is the default setting of life. If you do nothing, if you just wake up, go through the motions, and give the bare minimum, you will naturally fall into average. Excellence is never accidental. It's always intentional, always deliberate, always the result of someone who decided that ordinary was simply too expensive a price to pay. Think about it. The marketplace doesn't pay you for showing up. It pays you for the value you create. Two people can clock in at the same time, work the same hours, yet one walks away with 10 times the opportunity. Why? Because one chose to go beyond average, to develop rare skills, to bring creativity, energy, and solutions, while the other simply did what was asked. No more, no less. The difference isn't in the hours worked, but in the effort invested. The world doesn't reward average effort because average is everywhere. It's crowded, it's common, it's easy to find. If everyone can do it, then the reward is small. Scarcity creates value, and excellence is scarce. That's why it is rewarded. A diamond is precious because you don't stumble upon one every day. Excellence in character and discipline in work ethic. That too is rare, and that's why the world notices. Now here's the danger of average. It tricks you into thinking you're safe. People say, at least I'm not failing. At least I'm not at the bottom. But average is a silent failure. Because while you might not sink to the bottom, you never rise to the top. You stay unnoticed, unrewarded, and eventually unfulfilled. It feels safe in the moment, but it's deadly over a lifetime. Ask yourself, when was the last time you celebrated someone for being average? Have you ever cheered for the athlete who came in 5th place? Do companies fight over the employee who just barely meets expectations? Do people line up to hear from the speaker who gives a good enough talk? No, because average isn't memorable. The world passes it by without a second thought. Excellence, on the other hand, stands out. Excellence turns heads. Excellence creates opportunities. The athlete who stays late after practice, the employee who learns new skills on their own time, the parent who goes beyond providing food and shelter and pours wisdom into their children. These are the people who become irreplaceable, unforgettable, and respected. And here's something important. Excellence isn't about being perfect. Perfection is impossible. Excellence is about being consistent, about doing a little more than is expected, about refusing to settle for the bare minimum. It's a daily choice to step beyond what is comfortable and into what is necessary. The world doesn't reward average because average produces no impact. A person who gives average effort leaves no legacy. But when you live with excellence, when you commit to stretching yourself, to developing your mind, to sharpening your skills, you become a person of influence. And influence is what moves the world. Most people don't make it not because they are incapable, but because they decide that average is good enough. They don't realize that good enough is the slow poison of potential. Every day you accept average, you drift further from greatness. Every time you compromise, you build a wall between yourself and the extraordinary life you could have lived. So if the world doesn't reward average, what must you do? You must refuse to be ordinary. You must demand more of yourself than the world demands of you. You must rise early when others sleep in. You must practice when others relax. You must keep learning when others stop growing. Excellence requires sacrifice, but it pays dividends that average can never touch. At the end of your life, you will not regret the nights you stayed up a little later working on your craft. You will not regret the mornings you pushed yourself to grow when it would have been easier to stay in bed. You will regret the times you settled, the moments you said, "This is good enough," when deep down you knew you were capable of so much more. The world doesn't reward average because average doesn't change anything. Be bold enough to rise above it. Be courageous enough to demand excellence of yourself. And when you do, you won't have to chase rewards. The world will come looking for you. We often imagine failure as something sudden, something dramatic, something that comes crashing into our lives like a storm. But the truth is, failure is rarely an explosion. It is a slow leak. It begins quietly, almost invisibly with the small compromises we make each day. It's the corner we cut when nobody's watching, the promise we break to ourselves, the delay we justify with a harmless, "I'll do it tomorrow." These choices seem so insignificant in the moment, yet over time, they compound into big failures that shape the course of our lives. Think about it, nobody becomes unhealthy after one poor meal. Nobody goes broke after one careless purchase. Nobody ruins a relationship with one careless word. But repeated often enough, those little decisions, those tiny lapses, they accumulate until one day you look up and realize you're far from the life you imagined. It didn't happen all at once. It happened drip by drip, compromise by compromise, until the weight of those choices pulled you down. The mind is clever at excusing small neglects. It whispers, "One day won't hurt. Missing today won't matter. Nobody will notice." And maybe nobody does notice today. But tomorrow has a way of recording every choice we make. It is as if life is keeping an invisible ledger, and at some point the bill comes due. The person who neglects his health finds himself exhausted when opportunity knocks. The one who neglects learning finds himself unprepared when promotion comes. The one who neglects relationships wakes up one day surrounded not by friends, but by strangers. The danger of small compromises is that they are so easy to repeat. You do it once and the sky doesn't fall. You skip the workout and you still feel fine. You postpone the call and the world keeps spinning. You delay the project and no one complains. That illusion that nothing happened is what lures us deeper into mediocrity. Because nothing seems urgent, we fail to see that everything is important. Success and failure both live in the little things. The same way neglect accumulates, so does discipline. Read one book today, and you don't become a genius. But read one book every week for a year, and your mind is transformed. Save a small amount today, and it doesn't make you rich, but save consistently for 10 years, and you've built wealth. Speak one kind word today, and it doesn't heal everything. But build a habit of kindness, and you create relationships that carry you for a lifetime. That's the power of compounding. It works in both directions. Compromise compounds into regret. Discipline compounds into reward. And the tragedy is that too many people choose the easy compromise because the cost doesn't show up immediately. But eventually, life sends the invoice, and the price is always higher than you expected. When you see someone who has failed, someone who has lost their health, their fortune, or their purpose, it wasn't one catastrophic mistake. It was the accumulation of little mistakes, repeated daily, silently eroding their potential. And when you see someone successful, strong, wealthy, fulfilled, it wasn't one massive decision, it was small disciplines practiced consistently that created a life of significance. So what's the lesson? Guard the small decisions. They matter more than you think. The tiny compromises you make today are carving out the person you'll become tomorrow. If you want to avoid the pain of big failures, pay attention to the small moments of choice. Choose growth over comfort. Choose discipline over ease. Choose excellence over average. Remember, you cannot escape the law of compounding. You are either compounding your way to greatness or compounding your way to regret. Every day is a deposit. Every action is an investment. The question is, are you investing in a future you'll be proud of, or are you borrowing from tomorrow with choices that will bankrupt your potential? Life doesn't demand perfection, but it does demand direction. You don't have to win every battle, but you must win the majority of the small ones. Do not underestimate the power of consistency. Do not underestimate the damage of neglect. The great victories are always hidden inside the daily disciplines, and the great defeats are always hidden inside the daily excuses. The mind is clever at excusing small neglects. It whispers, "One day won't hurt. Missing today won't matter. Nobody will notice." And maybe nobody does notice today. But tomorrow has a way of recording every choice we make. It is as if life is keeping an invisible ledger, and at some point the bill comes due. The person who neglects his health finds himself exhausted when opportunity knocks. The one who neglects learning finds himself unprepared when promotion comes. The one who neglects relationships wakes up one day surrounded not by friends, but by strangers. The danger of small compromises is that they're so easy to repeat. You do it once and the sky doesn't fall. You skip the workout and you still feel fine, you postpone the call, and the world keeps spinning, you delay the project and no one complains. That illusion that nothing happened is what lures us deeper into mediocrity. Because nothing seems urgent, we fail to see that everything is important. Success and failure both live in the little things. The same way neglect accumulates, so does discipline. Read one book today, and you don't become a genius. But read one book every week for a year, and your mind is transformed. Save a small amount today, and it doesn't make you rich. But save consistently for 10 years, and you've built wealth. Speak one kind word today, and it doesn't heal everything. But build a habit of kindness, and you create relationships that carry you for a lifetime. That's the power of compounding. It works in both directions. Compromise compounds into regret. Discipline compounds into reward. And the tragedy is that too many people choose the easy compromise because the cost doesn't show up immediately. But eventually, life sends the invoice, and the price is always higher than you expected. When you see someone who has failed, someone who has lost their health, their fortune, or their purpose, it wasn't one catastrophic mistake. It was the accumulation of little mistakes, repeated daily, silently eroding their potential. And when you see someone successful, strong, wealthy, fulfilled, it wasn't one massive decision. It was small disciplines practiced consistently that created a life of significance. So what's the lesson? Guard the small decisions. They matter more than you think. The tiny compromises you make today are carving out the person you'll become tomorrow. If you want to avoid the pain of big failures, pay attention to the small moments of choice. Choose growth over comfort. Choose discipline over ease. Choose excellence over average. Remember, you cannot escape the law of compounding. You are either compounding your way to greatness or compounding your way to regret. Every day is a deposit. Every action is an investment. The question is, are you investing in a future you'll be proud of? Or are you borrowing from tomorrow with choices that will bankrupt your potential? Life doesn't demand perfection, but it does demand direction. You don't have to win every battle, but you must win the majority of the small ones. Do not underestimate the power of consistency. Do not underestimate the damage of neglect. The great victories are always hidden inside the daily disciplines, and the great defeats are always hidden inside the daily excuses. Discipline is also a declaration of self-respect. When you choose discipline, you're telling yourself, my future matters. My potential matters. I matter. Regret, however, comes from broken promises to yourself. Every time you quit on discipline, you teach yourself that your word doesn't mean much. And that kind of self-betrayal eats away at your confidence until you stop believing you're capable of anything great. The good news is that discipline can be learned. It's not a gift for the chosen few. It's a muscle, and like any muscle, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. Start with small disciplines, waking up on time, reading a few pages, choosing water over soda, and soon you'll find yourself ready for bigger challenges. And with every act of discipline, you move further from the haunting shadow of regret. Life will ask you to pay a price, no matter what. You can pay the small, daily price of discipline, or the crushing, lifelong price of regret. The question is not whether you'll pay, but which bill you'd rather receive. One leads to strength, freedom, and pride. The other leads to weakness, loss, and sorrow. So choose wisely. Choose discipline, not because it's easy, because it is worth it. Choose discipline because it buys you a future you won't have to apologize for. Choose discipline because when your time is up, you'll want to look back on a life well lived, not a list of dreams left undone. In the end, discipline has a price, but regret costs far more. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something important. Excellence is not reserved for a chosen few. It isn't some mysterious gift handed down to a lucky group of people. Excellence is not inherited, it is not bestowed, and it is not stumbled upon by accident. Excellence is a choice. Every day, in every small decision, you either choose it or you turn away from it. Most people never make it in life, not because they lack intelligence or opportunity, but because they refuse to pay the price of excellence. They settle for average, and average has a cost far greater than most realize. Average whispers to you, stay comfortable, play it safe, do enough to get by. And if you listen, it traps you. It convinces you that ease is the path to happiness, when in reality, it is the slow path to regret. Excellence, on the other hand, doesn't speak in shouts. It speaks in quiet reminders. It says, get up a little earlier, work a little harder, learn one more skill, do one more rep, read one more page. Excellence is never found in giant leaps. It's hidden in the small, consistent steps you choose to take. Those choices, repeated daily, shape the person you become. The difference between those who rise and those who remain average is not luck. It is discipline. One person chooses to push forward when it's uncomfortable, while the other settles into excuses. One says, I will do what's necessary, while the other says, I'll do just enough. And the truth is, life rewards the one who chooses the harder path today for the greater gain tomorrow. Think about the cost of average. Average steals your potential. It robs you of the respect you could have earned, the freedom you could have enjoyed, the opportunities you could have embraced. The price of average is subtle at first. Skip the workout today, nothing seems to change. Waste an hour mindlessly scrolling, your life doesn't collapse. Neglect reading a book, your mind doesn't grow dull overnight. But those small choices pile up, stacking day after day, and before long you wake up to a life you never wanted, a life built on compromises. Discipline, too, has a price. It asks for your energy, your consistency, your patience. But here's the difference: while average demands regret, discipline delivers reward. Yes, it may feel heavy in the moment, but it builds a future of strength, success, and satisfaction. Regret, however, is the heaviest burden you'll ever carry, and that's why average is far more expensive than excellence. So, what do we do about it? We choose. Every morning when you wake up, life hands you a decision. Will I settle for average, or will I pursue excellence? Will I coast, or will I climb? Will I let the day happen to me, or will I command it with intention? It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is what you decide to do from here on. Some people wait for inspiration to strike, thinking they must feel motivated before they act. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Discipline is the engine. Discipline is choosing excellence when motivation isn't around. Discipline is what allows you to follow through on your commitments long after the excitement fades. And let me say this, the world doesn't pay for average. The marketplace doesn't reward mediocrity. No one remembers those who settled. History records the names of those who demanded more of themselves. The ones who chose excellence even when it wasn't convenient, even when it wasn't popular, even when no one was watching. Excellence doesn't come from waiting for the perfect chance, the perfect timing, or the perfect circumstances. It comes from using what you have, where you are, and pushing it one step further. You don't need to be extraordinary to start, but you must start to become extraordinary. At the end of your life, you won't regret the price you paid for discipline, for hard work, for persistence. Those will be the investments that gave you a life of meaning, freedom, and impact. What you will regret is the price of average, the opportunities missed, the potential wasted, the dreams left undone because you chose comfort over growth. So I challenge you, don't settle. Don't make peace with average. Demand more of yourself than anyone else will. Expect more, give more, become more. Because excellence is not a gift reserved for the few. It is a decision available to all. And the moment you choose it, you separate yourself from the crowd. You step into the life you were capable of living all along. Excellence is a choice, not a gift. And today, you get to decide.